Hi, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. I'm Priyanka. Today, we are talking about books, and whenever you talk about books, I think the first name that would pop up in your head is Rachna. Rachna has her way with words and her way with books, and I was introduced to her for the first time at a book reading, and she had her entire audience captivated, and it was a very difficult audience. Everyone was under five, and everyone was listening, comprehending, and responding to all her questions and to the story. And it was so overwhelming to me as an adult because I just assumed that a bunch of toddlers would be like, I was like expecting kids to be all over the place, but everyone sat down, heard the entire story, answered questions, and it drew me towards this entire facade of like where you have one person reading a book, and you can manage to take a child completely into a different dimension, into a different brain space, mind space, and get them to think differently. And I'm sure each child's brain was thinking and picturing the same story in their own colors, and it is so endearing to watch young minds think and process information differently. And so I thought that we should have a conversation with Rachna about books, about education, about reading to kids, about cultivating good literature habits. So thank you, Rachna, for agreeing to come and talk with us about books and about reading and about building good diction, grammar, and just overall development of your brain, being able to like comprehend what you read and imagine a completely different dimension.
Thank you so much. You certainly made my day with that introduction. But yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure, and it's actually a refreshing topic to talk about as well, because it is sort of tucked down under the sheets where people don't really come out and do it. It's supposed to be the job of the school. In terms of reading lists or many other things, and it really doesn't get discussed as much as all other parenting, I wouldn't say issues or problems, but all other parenting topics do. So
Topics,
it's
yeah.
actually, yeah, so it's actually really refreshing for me to also be talking to you about this. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I understand that you have something called Rachna's Fun Club,
That's right.
which is like an after school activity for kids. And I also remember talking to you about your library, which has extensive book choices for kids. And I like a unique part about it is that you cannot send someone to pick a book, which I found, which is in
Yeah,
today's day of bhaiya photo dikhao and
right,
get it home. I think
right,
it kills the lazy child syndrome and the
right,
WhatsApp age. And I really truly think touching a book. Sometimes I
right.
don't know if smelling a book is part
Yeah,
of.
absolutely. I would have got to
Okay.
that.
Yeah, so like
Yeah,
touching, smelling, feeling the texture of the paper. Sometimes you don't like a book because it doesn't feel good. And is when I say feel good, I'm talking about the tangibility of it. Maybe the
right,
paper is too smooth or too rough or
right,
whatever it is. So you need to like feel it to be drawn to read it. At least that's
right.
how it works with people of the 89, 80s generation. I don't know what happens
Yeah.
in the 90s and so on and so forth.
Right. Yeah. So, if I had to explain what we do and who we are at Fun Club, it's an experience. So we started off as an experiential learning center, and when I say experiential learning, we mean hands-on. We mean in front of you. You can see it, you can touch it, you can smell it, you can taste it. They put things in their mouth. So for us, everything meant that the child needs to be able to, like you said, tangible. They need to be able to touch it. They need to be able to experience it. Okay, because we can all read a book, but how can you experience it? It's a similar thing like when you go to a restaurant and you're eating a food, right? If it's too noisy and it could be amazing food, but it's noisy and it's too crowded and you've not got your service on time and everything, it just completely mars the experience of you actually eating the food that is actually really delicious. So the same thing with children, and anything that we do with children, it has to be 100% experience based. It has to be something that they go through with you, whether it is, doing a puzzle, whether it's reading a book, whether it's, making Play Doh, it doesn't matter. That's the experience that they need to go through. And actually, that's been our USP, because we've always kept it child-centered. We've always kept it, they are the center of everything that we do, and everything else stems from that, you know. So I think if we had to make a mind map for everything that we did, it would all just always be centered with the child, and then we would have all the different avenues that we do. So definitely the after school program that we run as well. Yes, we do have our usual classes that you will find in every community, but we also try and do things which are out of the box. So in the past, we've done things like woodworking, and we've brought in a lot of cooking things for the children. We've brought in a lot of science, experiences for children, other than the experiments that they have, right? So ours is always very open-ended play. So even when it comes to the library, like you said, we are very clear that we want children to walk into the space. um, it's not like, oh, you've walked in now at 1 hour and then you have to leave in 15 minutes and you have to do that. We encourage children to spend as much as time as they can, because we want them to open the pages, we want them to flip through it, we want to let them lift the flap, we want them to smell. We do have some books actually which children can smell as well. And
Oh,
those are like, yeah, really good series of books that they can actually scratch and sniff. That's what it goes by. And they can actually smell the noodles and smell the spaghetti. Of course, it's faded off
yeah,
last
yeah,
couple
over
of years.
time.
Yeah. But then that's the experience that we like to give them for
Give.
anything that we do at Fun Club. And, it also extends to our outdoor activities that we do, whether it's a festival, or we do for brands, or we do for schools, or we do for communities, anything. The mandate for anybody who even collaborates with us is that you have to make it experience based for the children. And I think that it's a no-brainer. It just works every time. So that's pretty much the ethos and how we work, in all our different arms that we have.
And this is based in Bombay, in Worli.
Yes. We are at Cuff Parade.
Okay, sorry, at
Yeah,
Kaf
so
Parade.
we are at Cuff Parade, bang in the heart of Cuff Parade actually. And we've actually enjoyed the space for so long, because I think it's very important also to have such centers in communities, because then it's very convenient for parents to, you don't need drivers, you just have your help, you drop them off. Of course, it's also in a mini shopping complex, so parents do drop off the children and then go do their other stuff and come back. Um, Things like that. But it's become like a safe place over the last 12 years for parents to, just drop their children off. And
And
again, it's very flexible. We don't have a set day that Monday is art and Tuesday is book reading. You can walk in and do what you want on any day. The teachers are available. So if someone wants to read a book, they can do that. If they want to do vocabulary building, they can do that. You want to walk in with your twins and just explore the puzzles and the Lego and maybe other things. You're free to do that. So it's a very child-centric program. You choose what you want to do, you choose your day, you choose your time, you choose your program, and that's how we do it. So it's also very, very it's very important for us, for parents, to feel that they have a space that they can plan, instead of them having to choose from a number of programs that are already running in the center. So yeah, so that's what we do.
and this is open to kids from what age group?
So, earlier we would do 2.5 and up, and now we also have a 10-month-old and an 11-month-old coming in, because she's a working mom, and obviously the husband's working as well. And so she works half day, so she likes her child to be there, for the first 2 hours in the morning, because the child's still sleeping, waking up, and all of that. So we've
Yeah.
actually extended it to 12-year-olds, and then we start as early as now 10 months. So honestly, I don't know if we really have an age group that way, but yeah.
But I've also been reading about having mixed age group kids
Yes,
like
yes,
interacting with each other. I feel like the
right,
older ones become more empathetic, and the younger ones
right,
pick up
yes,
looking, watching, and learning. For those who don't have an
absolutely.
older sibling, then this becomes like your a little
Yes,
outline of what you need to do.
yes. So we do a lot of inclusive teaching, inclusive learning at Sun Club, where Sometimes parents who come to us for the first time, they're like, oh my God, I don't know, Rachna ended up putting my 2-year-old with her, with another 8-year-old. What is my child going to learn?
Going to do,
But I think
yeah.
once they get comfortable and they understand the process, they realize that, both age groups are sort of complementing each other. Both age groups are actually supporting each other. So the younger ones are actually learning from the older ones, and the older ones are actually learning to be more responsible, taking turns to wait. So, there's a lot of, confidence building, self-esteem. They also feel really great when they've been able to, manage to help a little child do
And
a
the child.
puzzle. So, yeah, so I think it works both ways. And from the very beginning, we've always had a mixed age group. Um, in fact, some of our children who are now much older, who are now 14 and 15 and 16, are coming back to intern with us.
So
So
sweet.
yeah, so they come in their summers, and then they're with us through a summer camp or maybe a winter camp or whatever. And some even just come over the evening. So I have two kids who come twice a week, regularly to help us. It could be anything, but they come. So it's actually really great to have that flow when we're doing stuff at Fun Club.
That's nice. So if we have to come back to books essentially, at what age do you think you would ask parents to, like start reading to your kids? And is there any age to start specifically, or do you think that kids are very receptive? Babies are very receptive.
Absolutely. So I don't think there's any specific age that we can start this for sure, because you can start as early as infancy, right? So I have two daughters. My older one is now, of course, going to be 16 years old. So they've been my guinea pigs for so many years. Did everything right by the book. And when you say right by the book, is everything that you've learned when you were studying to become an educator, or all the research that you've done. So from the black and white patterns on the court to, you name it, it was all there. And that actually really helps, because that is all you need for the child to at that point gain focus, right? And reading requires focus, right? The whole process of learning a language, or you to be able to read, is listening, speaking, reading, and writing, right? So the more you have visuals around, the more you will be able to speak to your child, and the more they will then listen to you and take in, right? So I feel that you can start as early as when they're in the court. A lot of people actually say, oh God, it's just, what is the child going to understand? They can't even see color when they're born, etc., etc. But I think that if you have, and it's consistency, a routine, if you do things right from the beginning, then that is all pre-reading for your child, right? So, like I said, start as early as when they're in the cot, and then gradually increase that, obviously according to the age appropriate, flashcards, tools, books, things like that. But honestly, I would say just start as soon as they're out.
And do you have any kind of routine that you would say, like, this is a good time to read? Like I personally think that mornings before breakfast, when you're waiting for breakfast, is a very good time to read because you're fresh, your mind is ready to, like, get information. Or
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
night, I feel post shower. That is my
Right.
personal like timing, and I've kind of tried to get my kids onto that same routine because
Right.
like I really don't know what is in their mind yet because they don't
Yeah.
speak, but I feel
Right.
like those are good times to catch kids, where they have the time to sit in one spot and listen to you.
Right. So yeah, definitely mornings work great. And the other time that works like really well is before bedtime, because both of these times your brain is wired. Okay, so when we are waking up, it's ready to soak in because it's had its rest, it's rewired. And again, when you're going to bed, it's getting ready to get rewired. So those are the two perfect times actually to actually read to your children. Routine, I would say, for anything to do with children is a must. Whether it's reading or even just eating, or it's like it's a really a crazy thing, but we have a routine to potty train our children, right? Eventually, when this is so, why can't we have a routine for reading, right? When you're consistently doing something at a same time or a similar time every day, that's called a routine, and that's what works for you, right? We tend to eat every day at the same time. We tend to leave for work, whether or not we have a meeting at the same time. That's how we, and that what happens is that your brain gets those signals. Your body gets those signals, and everything works in clockwork. So I think for children, it's just a must. I don't think there's even a debate on whether you should have a reading routine at all.
Routine, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing to do with children is I think a lot of times parents get overwhelmed and they get impatient and then they give up. So it's not something that will happen in a week or in 10 days or even a month, maybe. Sometimes you need it as much as 2 months or 3 months for your child to actually get into the routine. So I think consistency, having patience, and leading by example. Today, if you're on your phone, your child's going to be on the phone. Today, if you want to put a popsicle in your mouth, your child wants to try that. There are very few children who won't want to do what the mom or dad is doing or the adult with them is doing. So I think lead by example. You pick a book, they pick a book. So if you're reading in the morning, they're reading with you. Like, I think what happened for me was, we used to pick the newspaper, right, every morning, and that's reading. So I think a lot of times also parents feel that it's just the book, right? So the routine can't be only for the book. Reading is everywhere,
And yeah, any kind of material that you read is reading.
right? So whatever they're picking up in the morning, for example, if you have a cereal box, like what's written on that? And for this age group, 2 to 4 year olds, 5 year olds who can't actually sight read or don't know the alphabets yet, those become picture readings, right? So they're actually reading what's on a cereal box. They're reading what's on, maybe on a bag, on a paper bag. They're reading a symbol. They're reading a logo. McDonald's M, right? So that is all reading. Your car numbers. So it doesn't have to be a routine for just opening a book, but it can be a routine for reading, right? And then in reading, you have different categories where you remove different reading tools. I think that is something that parents don't know of. I mean, they're not supposed to. So it's our job to sort of equip and empower parents to, find out what are the other, because then this becomes fun. And then it's not a chore. And then obviously the child will, show interest to actually find better ways and more ways of reading. So, like I said, routine doesn't have to be to open a book, but routine should be reading. That should be the routine.
And how do you encourage your child to make like literature choices in terms of like I have say 20 books in front of me and I don't want to influence what my taste is. I would like to know what my child's taste is. So how do you get them to, slowly be confident enough to go pick their own books and not be embarrassed or shy or, wary of what someone is going to think looking at their
Absolutely.
book?
Right.
Because maybe someone like wants to read about flowers and only likes flowers, so you may read 10 books about flowers and maybe
Right.
don't care about reading anything about an animal, and that's okay too, right?
Which is
It's your
absolutely
yeah,
fine. Yeah,
it's your
which is
choice as
absolutely
long as
fine.
you're reading.
So, I think the key to that is what you asked me in the question itself is that, there are different genres of books. Today, you and I would have a different choice, right? On a particular day, I'd probably pick up a fiction book, but on another day, I'd probably want to pick up a romance novel. It doesn't matter, right? As long as I'm reading. But there are, like, for example, my younger one, and the reason I use them as examples and guinea pigs is honestly because they have been my learning, the two of them. And she's going to be 11 now, the younger one. And she only likes dragon books, right? But she has moved to a level where she's reading books that were probably a 13-year-old would be reading, right? And I'm okay with that as long as she's understanding it and she's doing it. I don't nudge her and say, try reading something else. But, it sort of comes back to the same thing, which is fine. But I make the effort to introduce her to new genres all the time. Because if you don't do that, then they're going to get stuck in that rut, right?
Correct.
Um, Unless she goes to a bookstore on her own or she's browsing the library on her own, she's not going to have those options. So I think as parents, we need to have those options ready for the children.
Ready.
So every now and then I'll bring a different genre of a book, obviously because we are fortunate we have a library, so I do bring things home for them. Um, but I think the more you introduce to them and the more you give them the options, then they have those options to choose from.
Choose
Uh,
from.
right. If you do not give them those options, then they're just sitting with what they have. So I think more often than not, that's the case. That's what really happens when parents say, oh, they're only reading one type of book, right? So I think the key here is to bring in lots of books. Sometimes a book's cover is appealing, Sometimes the texture, like you said, of a book is appealing to them. Sometimes they just don't like it, so they don't want to read it,
Read it,
and going
yeah.
back to the cliche of don't judge a book by its cover, but sometimes that's the experience that children have. So I think, yeah, definitely, and different formats, right? Like especially for the younger kids, it could be lift the flap book, it could be a roll up book, it could be a touch and feel book, it could be a sound book. So pick different formats of books that the children can actually choose from, and have it accessible to them to be able to choose from that, because sometimes we also tend to just give one book and say, now this is what you need to read, and the rest of the books are not accessible to the child, right? So then again, you're not giving them choices. I think this is one place where you need to give them choices. The children need to have multiple choices of books.
Choices.
Yeah, again, having said that, it's not that we put 20 books in front of them, right? So I think keeping that balance is also extremely important. And again, reading to them, reading with them, reading next to them. So these are the three stages. You read to them when they can't read, but they're reading with you through expressions, repetition of words. When you read with them is when they've learned to read and you're reading with them. And then you read next to them, read, not stop. You like basically you don't stop reading,
Stop them, yeah.
right? A lot of parents tend to do that for the older kids, right? Once they're about 7 and 8 and reading fluently, then they stop reading with the child. So again, there's no choice that I can make as a child if you are not with me, if you're not giving me those options. So I think these couple of things, help children also choose what they want to read.
That's true. So our next question is, how do you help a child become comfortable reading bigger words with, like, um, like for example, you have some kids who want to read books, like you said, which are a little ahead of their level of comprehension, or their level of their skill set or age group. So in terms of like helping them out, do you think it is recommended for parents to kind of push them to like go research these words, or do you think as parents it's okay, like when they're reading, to quickly tell them the meaning of it? Sometimes I feel like as parents, if you keep like telling them, why don't you look up the dictionary or why don't you google it, I feel like it kind of will distract them. There'll be 20
Mm,
more things that they see, and kids are
right,
everyone knows like their attention span can like
right.
quickly.
No, absolutely, and a very valid and excellent point to bring up. So we do something called the word wall, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this is we do this with children who specifically come for like a reading program to Fun Club. And we did this online through COVID a lot. It's actually, we've done this with kids in America, we did it with kids in Dubai, Singapore, and it's a hit. And they still send their word walls back to us, even though we're not, teaching them now. So the way this works is that, of course, for the children who are below the age of 5.5, 6, who are still sort of, getting a feel of two-letter words, three-letter words, the parent does the writing. Later on, it's the child that does the writing, right? So we say word wall because honestly, we tried to do this in COVID, where everybody was sitting in their rooms, and we started making them paste things on the wall, etc. But what you can do is you can do it with a paper, you can do it in a book, you can do it on a sheet, you can do it on the book itself. So we recommend post-its or little strips of paper. And every time you come to a word that your child doesn't know or can't spell or can't pronounce, then you actually write it down, right? And
Okay.
you sort of give them the meaning while you're doing it, but you don't go into it in depth. And then you revisit those words once the book is done, right?
Ah.
So the older children for chapter books will obviously have a lot more. There's a little bit of a debate between doing it on a Kindle where you can literally just click and you'll get to the dictionary word. So we say, again, go back to your actual paper book,
Mm-hmm.
because the brain has a very distinct connection with writing. Okay.
Got it.
When you write something, you will not forget it. If you just say it, you will forget it, right? So we've all grown up writing, right? Now everybody's typing. So there is a direct connection with us writing and learning. So in terms of even spellings, in terms of difficult words, in terms of finding multiple meanings for the same word, all of that can come from this word wall. So as you go through the book with whether it's a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, you keep writing. At the end of the book, you will have multiple words that the child doesn't know or wants to find out more about. Then you sit with a dictionary. Then you sit. I would say avoid Google
Yeah.
because you don't want to get children to get into the thing of taking a gadget because it defeats the purpose of us wanting them to read, right? You have a lot of fun dictionaries like the Royal Dial Dictionary. You have the Ladybird Dictionary, which are really, everybody thinks it's only Oxford. There are multiple other dictionaries that your child can actually use. So the Ladybird one is really nice because it is for children who are till the age of, say, 5 or 6 year olds and has really simple words. The Oxford Dictionary obviously becomes very exhaustive. So there are other dictionaries that you can pick up for children, which is very easy because they are picture dictionaries. So it'll have enormous, but it'll also have a really big, maybe radish right next to it to say enormous, right? So it's something that the child can also then figure out on their own. So there are, multiple ways of helping them deal with, the stress of reading, as we would put it.
That's very, very like insightful as a parent, to how to tackle this whole like explaining and also not being, there to quickly jump into
Absolutely.
your child's rescue without getting them to use their own brain. It defeats the entire purpose, I feel. Also, how do you encourage kids to choose and pick up a book instead of watching something on the screen? Like I constantly find myself as the odd one out. Like I recently had this conversation with a friend, and it kind of got me completely like puzzled as to why did I even ask this question? Because I remember saying, "Oh, do you think I can gift so and so an atlas?" And the answer I got was the atlas. You get these atlas with a QR code, which you can
Hmm.
see on an iPad. And that was the end of the conversation.
Right.
And I was just thinking, I still very clearly remember my first atlas. It was this huge book, which was like an animated world map. And, we would constantly like play these quizzes, like, it starts with A, ends with C,
Right.
and,
Right.
things like that. And
Yeah.
my sister and me would keep guessing. I mean, while like we didn't realize what we were doing, but I'm so glad we did this. And if there were more people, because we would get bored of our board games, we invented these games as cousins, and we just acquainted ourselves with every page of the atlas until one page tore. And like I remember crying, saying that no matter how much you stick it, it's not going to work, it's not going to be like my old atlas. And I absolutely don't like the person who tore it till date. But these are things that like I grew up, and I just wonder if my children are going to have that same experience, because we're so intertwined with technology. And like I feel like, what if my children are like technology challenged because of my issues with technology? Or simple like, if I have to watch, say, read about animals, I would rather put, a easy way out would be like a Discovery or a National Geographic. There are kid versions of it. But how do you get your child to know that, okay, this is available, but the joy of reading a book is completely different, where you can, imagine a whole like different version of what you're reading. It doesn't necessarily have to be all real.
So I think that also what you said is actually accessibility the to the to the book or to the atlas in the first place, right? Because you had access to your atlas, you were able to do ABC with it, right? So it comes back to us as adults, us as grandparents, us as caretakers, to create that conducive environment to for the child to want to be able to pick up a book in the first place, right? And like I said, reading doesn't always have to be um just your book. We don't have to have them choose a book over the screen. We don't have to have them choose a book over an iPad, a book over the phone. That's not it. Reading, like I said, can be anywhere and everywhere. A very fun activity to do for the younger ones is when you bring all your groceries home, when it could be your Star Bazaar or whichever bazaar you've gone and your parcels have come home. I think at least twice a month, if not more, because I know, as adults, we are busy, we are working, and generally house help end up doing the shopping, though I still love to do it. But I think that is also a reading process for your child, because you're picking up products, they're looking at letters, they're looking at formations, and that's how they actually sight read eventually, right? So I think it's very essential to take them to a store, to take them, even if you're buying ice cream, right? There will be a whole menu. You're going to a restaurant. Today, how many of us actually ask our child to read a menu? Even if it's a 4-year old who can read the entire alphabet, do we give the menu to the child in their hand? We don't do it. We say, Acha, you want your pizza, you want pasta, do you want paratha, do you want dal, right? But where are we giving them the opportunity to actually figure out letters and words from a menu, right? You get a lot of stuff put into your newspapers. Give that to your child, right? So I think it boils down to accessibility. It boils down to options. It boils down to the fact that we want to make that atmosphere available to the child to be able to read, right? And every time I say read, I mean it, like all of these other options that I've spoken about, right? I think the other thing to do always is to have children um, to respect what they're saying and how they're saying it, okay? Because as adults, a lot of parents tend to and I know a lot of people who are close to me who've been guilty of that fact, will not accept it, but have been, where you shut them down, right? Um, if your 5-year-old has come up with a pop-up book, you'll be like, that's not your age. You don't have to read this thing, read something better. Now, what's happened is that the child who probably doesn't want to read has picked up something that has caught their interest. You right? So that can lead to the child actually reading age appropriate stuff. And honestly, age appropriate is again very, very, very fluid. Because today, as a 5-year-old, I may be able to read something that a 7-year-old can read, or vice versa, right? So I think respect their choices, respect what they bring to you, respect how they bring it to you, respect how they respond to that. And I think that is a big key, because once they realize that what the choices that they are making are right in an adult's view, then they are fine, because we condition them so much, right? Because at the end of the day, only that play time, for example, or that reading time is their time.
There.
You're controlling when they wake up, you're controlling when they eat, you're controlling where they can go, which play date, which park, which what they eat. Till they're about 4 or 5 year olds, children don't have a chance to do anything on their own. So when they're reading and they're playing, these are the times where they have control over what they want to do. And once you have control over what you want to do, automatically you begin to do it in a better way, in a more productive, effective way. So I think parents should start exercising these two things for sure, which is respect and letting them make their own choices. Because once that sets in, then you have confident children who will, no matter where and what you do and where you go, will make those choices. So these are two things that definitely parents should keep in mind.
This is truly insightful, and I think even I'm guilty of a few of them.
Yeah, we're not, I mean, we all have done it. So it's just that, when you stop, and which is why we do so many talks and seminars, and, we are out there to help parents understand. Because today, like if I was a lawyer, I would know everything about law, but I'm an educator. I have no clue. So if someone
Yeah,
tells me and educates. Then I'll know what to do.
that's true.
It's just that parents are supposed to know everything. We're not supposed to know everything. We're supposed to discover it along the way and learn with children. And I think another very important point that I like to make here is that as a parent, we need to tell children we don't know everything, right?
That's true.
Because everything has to be at the level of the child. So we also encourage parents, when you're chatting, talking, singing, playing, please be at the eye level of your child, because you can't be here and your child's here and then you'll be like, I don't know what's happening. So I think also always being at their level helps them understand that we are on the same page.
Same page.
Yeah. And then literally we can get maybe 50% to 60% better results when we're with children. And it's not only for reading, but it's for everything that you do with children.
Yeah, and also like you said, learning with your children.
Absolutely.
Ironically, the podcast is called Little by Little because we're learning along the
Right.
way. And I
Right.
like I like it when, sometimes when your children expose you to something and their eyes are like, oh my God, I just taught my mom something.
Exactly.
I must be really cool. And I think it makes them feel so good that sometimes I
Absolutely.
pretend to not know just so that they can,
Yeah. That,
like
yeah, but it's
follow
absolutely
the
fine to
lead.
do that. Yes, because we do it all the time where we actually say, "Oh my God, even I didn't know that, or I've discovered something," and
Yeah.
then they're just like, "Really, you didn't know about it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's find out more." Because
More.
then
Yeah.
you've got their curiosity going, you've got their imagination running wild, you've got them actually thinking about, "Oh, let's find out more, and maybe I can find out a little bit more, and I could share it with somebody." Because at the end of the day, knowledge, or whether it's a playtime, play with clay, or reading a book or any of that, it's enhanced when it's shared, right?
That's
Because
true.
today you're teaching your child's going to talk to another child, and that's how it spreads. Because today you and I are speaking, I'm learning from you, you're learning from me, and that's how the process goes on. So I think that's exactly how we should also put it forth for children as well, definitely.
Coming to parents who are working, how, like, a lot of, I mean, in India we have the nanny culture, so we either are leaving our kids back at home with their nannies, or there is a grandparent, and not necessarily everyone has the patience to sit with your child and read, or two has the capability to read. Some parents may not know to read English fluently. They may read, say, a Hindi or a Marathi or their own regional dialect, and script better. The house help may not know to read English, but will probably know to read Hindi or Marathi, and there is no harm in reading books of different languages. But I think as parents, we just usually end up, as a parent, I would probably not even look at a book in a regional language, because I myself find it difficult to read a Hindi or Marathi as a novel. Like if it comes, like the election parchi and all of that. Slowly,
Right.
I will read it, and I'm ashamed to say this because I'm Indian and I should know these languages because I learned them in school. But I don't read the script every day, so I find it difficult. Whereas it's the same way for our house help or anyone who doesn't speak and read English. So how do you facilitate them, like helping your children read? Like sometimes kids just want you to sit by them and want an adult, but they still don't know to read. So you can do the pictures, but beyond that, is there any other way you can maybe help, certain type of books that is self-explanatory or
Absolutely. So I think there are a couple of things here that you can do. Is one, if you have access to another group of children, or you have access to a space where that caretaker or a grandparent who doesn't understand that language can actually take that child. It could be a library, it could be a bookstore, it could be another person's house. In an ideal setup, if that is available to the child, then that's sort of something that the child can explore. So it could be another parent. It could be, so many times we have children who've got older siblings. Like when my younger one used to have play dates at home, and I would just say, I would tell the moms, Ria's around. That's my older one. And they were like, fine, no problem, because then she could read, right? But that's, like I said, all of these are ideal situations where you do have an older sibling, but
sibling?
yeah, but in probably in a case where it's like twins or just a single child and you don't have that, then you can also, one of the ways to do something is to actually plan play dates, to plan outings where then they are all of that is automatically available to them. So that is one way of doing it. The second thing is, which is a no-brainer, is audiobooks, which is actually the least used medium um, of all times. And I think it's so underrated and underplayed because when a child has a book, and you can actually couple the book with the audio. It's very easy to do because all of this is so readily available. So for example, if you're talking about for want of a better example, I'm taking Julia Donaldson because it's supposed to be really popular. Parents
Yeah.
really want those books. You take A Snail in the Whale, for example, right? And I have the book and I have the audio, which I have access to as a grandparent or as a caretaker. And now every nanny is, I think, more educated than you and I put together are. Okay. They know their way around gadgets
They
way
do.
better than we do.
Yeah.
So you give them access to the book, you give them access to the audio. Now you have the swish of the water and you have the of the waves,
Yeah.
and that is getting coupled with the actual book in the child's hand. So it's a no-brainer, right? Um, a little older child will also be able to press that audio button on his own, right? So
That's
I
true.
think that's a fab way of using both mediums. I think sometimes parents are skeptical because they feel they'll get used to it, but it's a beautiful thing to get used to, because why do we love songs so much, right? We love songs so much because it is the rhythm, the music, the beat, the change, and all of that. Today, if I just do or I'm talking to you with expressions, there's going to be a world of a difference in the way you actually receive that information, right? So I think that's the second thing that really works well. And like I said, it's readily available. There are loads of audiobooks, apps that you can just download, and then you're not worried about a child actually looking at the gadget, because there's nothing happening there, right? There's just the sound coming out of it. It's going to be a blank screen. It doesn't have any animations. It doesn't have anything. So it's not addictive. And I think also when you set boundaries with children and tell them that this is what you can use with this device, I think very clearly from the beginning, right from the beginning, then it works. The other third thing that you can do is you can do flashcards, right? Where the child actually then develops a way of reading by themselves. So it doesn't necessarily, again, have to be a book. It can be pictures, it can be sequencing activities, it can be a nursery rhyme that can be done. So we have these beautiful cards in Fun Club, and I don't know where I picked it up, because wherever I travel, wherever I go, I just keep picking things up. I've lost track of where I've got half the stuff. But I think I think they were ELC cards, Early Learning Center, which now you don't get in India at all. You have to go, abroad to get them. But they're really beautiful cards because it's a nursery rhyme in a sequence. See,
Oh,
we don't end up doing that with our children, right? But that's also eventually reading, and reading requires sequencing, right? We do shapes. We'll do a square, triangle. But why don't we do that with alphabets, and why don't we do that with a song or a nursery rhyme? So I think flashcards is a beautiful way of also getting your child involved into the pre-reading stage or even the reading stage, because then eventually they can string their own sentences, and they can come up with their own storylines, and they can create their own storyboard, and just one thing leads to the other. So I think these two three things are very doable with children. And then again, just listening to nursery rhymes. And you spoke about different languages. um, Children are like a sponge. The more you put in, the more they'll take in. And then when you coax them, it'll all come out. So I think exposing them to different languages. You spoke about bilingual books, fab way to do it, because then the child brings in the English, and the helper or the nanny or the grandparent brings in, you have Gujarati, Marathi, Tamil, Punjabi. You have all of these. Tilika is a great source for those. And it's actually really easy, because some of the grandparents can actually then translate, because you have the Hindi as well as the
Hindi,
English
yeah.
on the same page. And children are very clever. Today, if your help is, say, maybe a Nepali and her accent is different, and your driver is a Maharashtrian and they will switch immediately.
Yes.
They are very, very clever. They can switch, and it's not. And how come that time Hindi is coming out, and how come that time Marathi is coming out, and how come with you English comes out so easily, right? So I think the more you expose them to languages, it's fab. If they know Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, all the other languages, fab. Yes, English, of course, they do need to do it as well. But these are the ways that we can also support their English
The
learning.
English,
And then
yeah.
again, the same thing of giving the responsibility, right? To say, listen, why don't you teach Dadi 4 words today by the time I come back, right? Why don't
Yeah.
you teach? So, Didi is saying April, it's not April, it's apple. Can you say apple? Can you teach her to say apple? And then the child will say, hey, listen, I have taught her something as well. So I think giving them that opportunity also to say that, now we are teaching them, and they are sort of just sitting with us, it's
Yeah.
not the other way around. I think that makes a world of a difference as well. So these things, couple of these things can, parents can try, and they definitely work, because it's easy to do as well.
This accents thing for sure. I feel like we play Alexa in our house, the rhymes. So somehow when they're singing rhymes, it's usually an American or a British accent. Bro, and suddenly when they speak Hindi and they'll say bhago. So I do very vividly know the shift in accent, and I used to always wonder, I didn't pay too much attention in terms of like, oh, if they listen to rhymes of a certain
Right.
region, they're going to pick up the accent. You just assume that they'll sing
Yes.
it, but they don't know how to speak any other way.
Absolutely. In fact, we got these COVID babies. Okay, we call them COVID babies because we were born
Poor
in
guys.
COVID. It's a term now in our fraternity. But the reason that they spoke in a certain way was because there was no other entertainment.
Yeah,
You had what you had at home, and you were pressed for choices to actually introduce your child to different things, right? So Peppa Pig became the accent, and Lululemon became the accent, and these are children who will switch immediately when they're talking to their parents. And
yeah,
when they're talking to us, like some of them haven't, because they learned like that. So they can't speak otherwise. So you have very, very Indian looking children whose parents are speaking an Indian accent like we do. But they are going water and
yeah,
can you give it me? And we were like, what happened here? But unfortunately or fortunately, that's what the child was introduced to, right?
yeah,
And I think that is something that you can't change. That is something that we can't. But yes, you can adapt. You can definitely adapt to it. And certain things will happen, which I think instead of correcting a child, you got to just say it right.
yeah.
You know, a lot of times we have children who say, can you give me a yellow color, right? Because a lot of the
The
domestic help,
help
or
says hello. Yeah,
they say yellow. So I'll say here's the yellow crayon. Here's your yellow book. So I think not correcting them and just giving them the right word is an easier way of actually doing that as well, because that's bound to happen. You can't help it. I mean, today we were Greek or we were Spanish, our children would be doing more of that. So
yeah.
I think it's just a question of, again, being consistent, again trying to find what works for what combination permutations work for you and your child
Works. Yeah,
or your grandparents or things like that. And yeah, and I mean, it's fine for us to learn from them and be able to, sort of correct that and, go ahead. Yeah.
that's true. Do you also feel this is a little like just organically moving from the accents and stuff? Do you feel kids these days don't speak grammatically correct English? And does it bother you? Because I like we like in my school we weren't allowed to speak Hindi, and it was a very I went to a convent school, and it's not about like looking down upon Hindi or thinking English is better, but I feel like
Okay.
whatever you do it properly. Like we speak
Right.
good Hindi and we
Right.
speak good
This is
English,
fine. Right.
but I feel like a lot of our kids, when I go to the park, I hear them. I mean, they're going to good schools, but where what happens in the middle, I
Right.
you think it's because of the nanny culture? That's all I can point a finger at, because we all grew up without like too much house help. Like even my parents were working, but we were kind of with some family member at all times.
Right.
So I
Right.
feel like we picked up the right words. We read. I feel like either the kids are not reading, or the parents don't speak to their children, or there's something's missing. I
Yeah, so there are a couple of things here, and why that happens is because, for us, fortunately, we have the opportunity and the privilege of speaking to multiple parents, on a weekly or a monthly basis, where everybody comes from a different background, right? You have children whose parents are in tech, for example, will be speaking a very different language because that's what they're hearing at home all the time, right? You have children whose parents are doctors, for example. We had just last year, we had both doctors, very famous doctors in Bombay, had three children, and all three children are chalk and cheese. Like all three of them were different, right? So I think children observe and absorb, if I can say, information as they want to. All right.
Hmm.
Because if I'm not the only sibling who's grown up, I'm extremely different from my sister, for example. I have an older sister. We grew up in the same household, right? We're listening to the same things. We're listening to similar things. And she always says, you can't be correcting me all the time, right? And she's a lawyer today. So her language is very different. It's all jargon which I don't understand. But that's how you end up speaking, right? Because that's how you end up thinking, and that's how you end up reproducing all the knowledge that you have. So I think the same thing happens with children. Yes, of course, the fact that both parents are working, the couple is working, is a big factor, because then the child is not exposed to your language on a on a minute by minute basis, right? Also, a lot of the IB culture. I am completely for PYP, MYP, Cambridge. I'm all for IB, but I also feel that they don't lay stress on spellings. They don't lay stress on grammar. um, Later years, you end up typing. Children are using autocorrect. So I think there are multiple reasons for this happening. Because today, if I don't read, and I'm not reading a sequence and a sentence. Supposing I'm reading, the cat in the hat sat on the mat, and that's what he thought was, out of his hat. If I'm not reading that, then I'm not reproducing it, right? So again, boils down to what your child is being exposed to on a daily basis, right? Because a lot of this IB culture, there is no red marks for a wrong spelling. There is
Yeah.
no. So we grew up. So it was not. We were not terrorized. There was that
We
word.
grew up with dictation exam.
Yes,
10
yes.
marks
So there is no
dictation.
dictation now, and even if you take math timetables for that matter, right? They're not being bogged down with that, and for us, there was no choice. We just had to do it. So
Yes.
it stems from that a lot of the children who are not going to ICSE, IGCSE, SSC schools now don't have that rigor of grammar, don't have that rigor of, you have to do. We had to do 20 spellings a day. There was just no way out, right? You have to do. Again, this comes
Or you'd get those big red circles in
of
your
course, now
worksheet.
it's like, oh, it's okay, it's fine. The child will, eventually learn and all of that. So I think it's a bit of an, you have to find the balance and you have to figure out how you can do that for a child. And which is why, we go back to the word wall example, for example, where we say, okay, now, if you think that the child is off with the grammar or off with the spelling, then let's try and do that. And, you can take that to the next level to make it interesting. It can be color coded post-its. It can be different pens that the children can use. Like we do a lot of rainbow writing. Rainbow writing, simply put, is the same word has to be written 7 times. But today's age, if you tell the child write it 7 times, they're not going to. But hey, let's write it with a rainbow colors, and then the child's going to write it 7 times. So it could be for a sentence, it's for a word, it's for a anything. Then they just do it because we're making it fun. Now in today's day and age, we have to make everything fun, otherwise it's not gonna happen. And I think us expecting the children to do it how we did it also is not gonna happen. So I feel that just us being able to do it in different ways and mediums helps children to even correct grammar, spellings, and all of that. But there might, like I said, these 2, 3 reasons that obviously, it is the nanny culture, it is also the schools, it's also which school and which, curriculum your child is studying. And how much of that do we make an effort to actually correct, right? Because, contrary to what everybody says, oh, don't correct your child, oh, their self-esteem. And no, they need to be corrected for
But
certain things.
grammar you have to
Yes, you
correct.
have to. You have to. Give me water. Give me give me glass water. I mean, it's difficult for me to give me a glass of water. So it's also a and it's also
Yeah.
the
The
and the.
and the. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
yeah. So I think the more we expose them to it, and the more we correct it, grammar needs to be corrected. There's just no two ways about it. Spellings need to be corrected. And just today I was at my daughter's school and they had a portfolio share, and she had made a couple of spelling mistakes, and then she looks at me and says, read the essence of what I was trying to say. And I'm like, but you will correct the spelling. I got a gist, and I've understood where you're coming from and what you're trying to do, but you've got to fix your spelling. There's just no two ways about that. So I think you've got to find that balance, and you've got to be the parent when you need to be the parent. So yeah, these couple of factors contribute to children not being able to speak grammatically correct English or even spell correctly anymore.
And my last question, would you have any book recommendations in terms of authors for uh, a few age groups for like parents who probably are hearing this and are inspired by, okay, maybe we need to start somewhere. So, from infancy, say till
Come
up
to
to
Fun Club.
five, just, yeah, I was going to say the next thing would be how do we enroll? But yeah, but you start with a few recommendations.
Yeah, so definitely the usual suspects like Julia Donaldson and Eric Carr and all of those are there as well. But even Julia Donaldson will have 3 variations and versions to the one book, which parents don't know about. Because when we go to a bookstore, even a person like you who likes to gift them, you said to people, you tend to buy the popular version of a book. For example, Eric Carr's really famous. If I'll ask you and you'll be able to say the caterpillar. Well, everybody will just buy the book, right? But he's got it on numbers, he's got it on alphabets, he's got it on just a couple of sight words, he's got it on colors, he's got it on a pop-up book, he's got it. So
On the
every
farm?
yes, so every author that you have who's become popular will have multiple versions of the book. They'll have a sticker book, they'll have a workbook, they'll have so actually doing that with your child makes sense, right? So yes, pick the popular ones, but also go to, supposing I say Charlotte's Web, no one's going to know who that author was who's actually written it down, right? Axel Scheffler. A lot of these people who've written books go beyond Oliver Jeffers. They go beyond, um, oh, I don't know about this genre and I don't want to, because today, as a parent, when I walk into a bookstore, these are the books that are going to be laid out because these are bestsellers, right? But I would suggest these parents go to them and say, hey, listen, do you have any other versions of this author's books? And the bookstore owners or the people who are there or even at the library are more than happy. They're waiting for
Happy,
you to
yeah.
they're waiting for people to come and actually say, help us find another book. So yes, definitely all of these authors. Dr. Seuss is a fab series because
He's
it's
a
whimsical.
staple, yeah. And he has
Yeah,
a way with like
absolutely,
words and he's
totally
silly.
whimsical, silly, whimsical, doesn't make sense at times, completely out of the box, which is what you need your child to be reading because they need to be experiencing things which are not, I mean, thing one and thing two. No, my name is Rachna and your name is Rachna. So I think exposing them to Dr. Seuss, and they have different, again, levels where your child grows
Correct.
with them, right? So you have the beginners and you have the readers and you have the proficient and then you have the fluent reader. So I think your child pick a series that they can actually grow with as well. So that's a really good one. Then you have lots of Einstein books, which are really great for your little ones as well. And as they grow up, because an Einstein book can also talk to you about Mozart, and it's also
Yeah.
talking to you about Monet, a painting. And so I think um, finding things that you can expose your child to in terms of just a sheer um, a variety of what the author also brings to the table, right? Because you always tend to say, oh, I just want only this because this one looks colorful and fun. No, some pictures will be big, some can be small, some the
Small.
child can just browse through. Even the texture and the thickness of the page makes a difference to a child. Because if I can't turn the page, I don't care what's the author and who the best selling author is, it doesn't matter to me as a child. I should be able to flip the page. I should be able to turn it on my own. A lot of times I also tell parents when you're speaking to children and you're reading to them, let them turn the page.
Yes.
So a
That
lot of
brings them
authors,
back to the book.
yes, and a lot of the illustrations also you have to look at. A lot of the Indian authors are doing fab. Like you go to Tulika and you'll find so from Nandini Nair to Shabnam Mindwala to Joanna Rebello to Payal Khangal. I mean, there's no dearth of Indian authors also writing books, and they're writing fab books,
Fab
right?
books.
Fabulous book. So I think go down the Indian author way as well. You have Anushka Ravi Shankar. I'm just whatever's coming at the top of my head. It doesn't always have to be a foreign author because
That's true.
these Indian author books are more relatable because it has a
Relatable.
it has a Rahul and a Ravi in the book. It
Yeah.
has a Priya and a Arjun in a book, which then you can relate to, right? So I think pick the Indian author books and they've got an excellent dialect. A lot of times parents think, oh no, the language will suffer because it's an Indian author's book. No, these authors are fab and they're doing a great job. And you have some really great people illustrating these books, right? So it makes it even more interesting.
More
And
interesting.
yes, absolutely. You have Sabri's colors, you have again, I'm just thinking my mother's sari. You have there's one thing called Someone's House, which is again talking about how it goes from your flat to your building to your locality to your area to Mumbai to Maharashtra to
India.
India and then to Asia and then the world. So lots of beautiful books that are out there that other Indian authors also that you can, yeah, like I said, you have Mo Williams and you have Eric Carle and you have Julia Donaldson, all those, but I think it's time for parents to also sort of start exploring other genres as well.
So do you also have any like bookstore recommendations?
Unfortunately, there are too many in our city.
The last
Um,
one I saw, new one, was in
Bandra,
Geo. No,
huh?
no, no. In the one of the Geo malls, right next to
The
the
book wave,
Crocs, the Nandan Coffee, and
yeah. But
yeah.
that's, I mean, that's
But
again,
that
it's
had
yeah,
that had one
one little
small
section,
cabinet for kids' books
right, right,
and a bunch of other things. I
right,
keep looking on Amazon.
yeah,
Like if someone gifts me a book, at least this is how I started as a noob for kids' books, okay?
right,
Because
right,
I mean, I don't remember buying kids' books for myself. They were always purchased. So
right.
if someone gifts me a book and my child is very intrigued by the book, I'd look up the author and find
Want to
something
find more books similar.
more,
But that's
or
a fab
yeah,
way to do it because once your child has liked a certain author or illustration, see, sometimes it can just be the feel of the book. It could be the author, it could be the content, it could be anything. Like you have Gagapati Kolapati, which is a universal favorite now because it just got so much elements of fun in it that you would want to find more books from the
more
same
books.
author or
Yeah.
publisher. Which is a fab way of also actually finding things.
In fact,
I
even the
think
Little Blue Truck, I don't know
yes.
who the author is of the Little Blue
Yeah.
Truck, but
Yeah.
and the Spot series.
Hmm. The
We've
dog. Yeah.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
gone through all of them. We got the Little Blue Truck, a board book, and now we
Hmm.
have every Little Blue Truck went to the city, went here, went there, went to the
Yeah.
garden, went meet new friends. And
Yeah.
the way they introduce it is the first paragraph is the same.
Right. And
And
then they
so
figure out what to do.
so the kids are like, oh, is this the same book? And then
Yeah.
they find the familiarity, but the story is different, the pictures are different. So I think like it kind of
I think what
it
you can also do is
series helps.
look at publications, look at publishers. So if you pick up Osborne books, they're great for the little ones,
But
right?
yeah.
So when you're not looking at an author, then you're looking at a series of books.
Yeah.
You have twins. So Topsy and Tim is a fab series. They're twins. Topsy and Tim are twins. And then they
Okay,
go to
I
the
should look them up.
restaurant. Yeah, they go to the restaurant, they go to the zoo, they go to the cop station, they've gone to for a swimming lesson, they've had their first day at school, they've had their potty training, they've gone to a fire
Oh,
station.
cool.
They've done it all. They've gone to the movies, they've gone to a farm. So I think also trying to find things which are not famous.
Relatable. Yeah.
Yes,
And also
not famous.
relatable.
Absolutely. Um, you talk about the Mr. and Miss series books, the Little Mr. and Little Miss series books. Those are amazing. The day your child is grouchy, just read it. Don't say, you're
Yeah.
behaving badly today. Just read it and then they'll figure out, oh, oops, I'm not supposed
Yeah.
to be doing this, right? The day they're cheerful and they're happy and they've surprised you with something, pick that book.
Pick
So
that book. Yeah.
yeah, I think more than bookstores, I think it's where you go for your information on books. And that's why I think libraries are not because we have libraries, but I think that makes all the difference because today when you go to a bookstore, so when you go to Kitab Khana, they have bean bags. They made it so much fun for the children. They allow you to because bookstores don't actually allow you to sit there and read a book, right?
Read. Yeah.
But Kitab Khana does that. It's a fab place that you can do it. You have book waves, you have tideways. So in Bandra, you have two or three as well. But find a local library because then your child is walking into that library, is experiencing those books. I mean, they could be toys as well. But then they're pulling out a book, they're opening it. Oh, yes, no, maybe so. Putting it back, taking another book, choosing. Then, yeah, okay, you have to choose three books. Then that is where your, condition comes in, but the condition can be you have to read the book.
Yes.
So I think libraries are a fab way of doing it. And I think a bookstore is different from a library because you've got the book home, it's you own it. And then if you've torn it, you've torn it. But I think when you take up a library membership, the children learn a lot more. They learn that they have to be responsible, they have to take care of the thing, they have to give it back at the same time. It has to come back. I can re-borrow it. That's an option. But I think being a member of a library gives children a lot more than just taking them to a bookstore. And I
You
think
also become responsible to read it within a
yes,
time
of
frame,
course, yes,
and
because you have to give it.
you better not
Yes,
tear it, or you can't
yes,
like drop food on it, and
yeah, absolutely. And I
you
think
did.
it's easier on the parent in more ways than one. One is that I think there will be only 1 out of 20 parents who says I want to build a library at home for my child, right?
No,
It's
Baba, in
very
Bombay,
rare.
where? How is it
Yeah,
possible?
right. So there's no space. And so a library makes complete sense where you actually just go ahead and borrow 4, 5 books a week. and you give it back. And at Fun Club, we don't have this thing of, that we don't have a deposit and we don't have this and we don't have that. And all. Of course, now if you've torn the book, then you've obviously got to replace it. But otherwise, it's just the joy of reading. We want you to come back and, you give it back on Tuesday, Wednesday, take more books and go back, and
Mhm.
that's how it should be. So we let you borrow up to 60 books in a month, which is one book
Oh,
a
how
day.
nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
And it's also very encouraging to kids. So how do we enroll as parents? If like now schools are shutting, so I guess now
Yeah.
everyone's looking for Rachna.
Yeah. So, honestly,
For
we
those of
have
us
a
who don't live in Cuff Parade
right,
and
right.
may not have access to you in after school hours, we can come to you with an agenda, summer
Of
camp.
course. So we do a lot of classes. We do a lot of summer camps. Again, we do a lot of reading camps. We've got a book club that goes on as well, and the book club starts for children as young as 5. It's not that they have to be able to read the book. It's us reading the book with them and then them discussing how they felt about it. Like right now, just yesterday we did one. Sorry, not yesterday. On Friday we did one where we actually spoke about the summer holidays and what would it was a whole book about Macy going on a trip and how would you actually, and this was for 4 year olds, like what would you take in your suitcase? And then, we gave each of them those little suitcases that they could fill whatever they wanted to. And those were just ideas they were putting in. It's not like they had concrete stuff to put in. And then, they opened up their suitcases and then they said what they wanted to say. So we don't have any rigid set formats like that, but we do a multiple amount of stuff at Fun Club, and it's a very seamless, simple process. For example, we have a plan A and a plan B because we want both your plans to work out. So
Okay.
plan A is a very simple 3,500 rupees for 3 months, and you get to borrow 60 books. It's as simple as that. And then you have plan B, and again an amount, and you can just book. We deliver at home as well. We deliver all the way up to to Pedder Road, Worli, Valkeshwar, all of that as well, at no cost. We of course have 1 day of delivery, which just makes it easier for us per area. And now the parents have got used to it, and we also encourage children to come to us and pick books maybe for the whole month, right?
Mm.
So we have a snapshot kind of a process where you come in with your child, you select for 4 weeks, we click pictures, we put it up on our chat with you, and it just gets delivered to you. So it's at least better than not coming at all, because it's difficult for sometimes for parents who are far away to come every week. So that's how we do it. You come with your child 1 day for half an hour, 40 minutes. Child is browsing through everything, has seen, and then they remember. So we don't, and if the parent changes it, then they're like, no, we have not selected this book.
Yeah.
So they remember, they very clearly remember. So we try not to change that, obviously. So it's a seamless process actually for parents. And in fact, I think the parents who live further away are the ones who actually come, the ones in Cuthbert,
Come.
Colaba and all. They don't end up
But
coming.
it is always like that. Grass is always greener where it is, where the land is more sandy. But
Right.
no, so I just wanted, I was curious to know, other than the library, in terms of the fun club, do kids come for a stipulated time during the summer camp, or is it like a full
Yes.
day situation for like free
So
play?
right. So we have a 10 to 12 camp in the mornings. We
Okay.
have children coming in right now as well. We do really small batches, honestly. We try and do 6 to 8 children a batch. We don't like to do more of that, but we do have 2 levels and we do have more than 2 teachers. So then we, break up the children and, the ones on the top always want to come down and vice versa. So we rotate the children, etc. And we have an open house where basically between 10 in the morning and 6:30 in the evening. You can just walk in. You
Okay.
can do a per hourly thing where you walk in and you can use any of the equipment in the library. We have tons of blocks, links, puzzles, flashcards. We've got like from your regular Jenga to your, to your Lego to everything. So people just come in, they drop their children off. Above the age of 5, 5.5 children, like now who are comfortable with us, they just stay. We explore. Sometimes we ask the parents, is there anything specific they'd like us to do with the child, and we do that. Some want to do only art, or some want to do some science experiments. So honestly, like I said at the beginning, it's all child centered. So the teacher will take from what the parent has said or what the child, and sometimes they're like, let him do whatever he wants to do, right?
Yeah.
So then we take them, and of course, then we try and nudge them towards, solving a little
Doing, trying
mystery.
different things.
Right. But material is all there, and in fact, now we are also coming up with an exclusive library very soon. So the play area will move, and the existing place is only going to be a library. So it's going to become,
Wow.
yeah, top to bottom only books. We are making, we're not going to be doing so many toys, but we are introducing more books. So we've crossed over 5,000 books now. So yeah, that's the aim, to promote reading and to promote just children being able to come and do what they want to do in a space
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, so that's
Like
pretty much
I
what we do.
haven't stopped smiling since we started talking about books. And I just
Right,
realized like it's my most favorite thing to do with kids. Even
right,
when we travel, sometimes, when like three, four couples with kids of more or less the same age, I think usually
right.
our room, after the kids have
As
their dinner,
everybody.
everyone
Right.
is like sprawled on our bed in different
So
like little
sweet.
jigsaw puzzles. And between my husband and me, we're sort of reading these books,
So
and
sweet.
I couldn't imagine my husband being so, animated and making
Yeah.
all these voices and things like that. But
Right.
I truly feel like that's that like he comes alive with the
Yeah.
books. And
Absolutely.
as a couple, I think we've been doing this with our children. So like you said, we didn't have any like agenda. It's just that so, like with twins, actually it stems from there. With I don't it was just easier to keep them in one place if I read to them. So
Hmm.
we started
I think it also, the fact that you are enjoying the process and your husband's enjoying the process, that sort of transcends to the children. That translates to what the energy that you have. Today, if you see a child who's so happy and giggly all the time, you're going to giggle.
yeah,
You're going to do that. So I think um, parents also need to sort of make that effort to be able to create that whole atmosphere with just that one book. And I always say that the book can be read in multiple ways over
ways,
many days. Like
days.
today, just only do the colors from the book. Tomorrow, only do, can you spot something from there. Day after, do rhyming words. The day after that, say, can we find all things that are only circle and shape. So there are a million things that you can do with that one book, and that's how the child gets connected to that book, gets attached to that book. And also, a lot of times parents don't revisit the books that they've already read, because they
Yes.
said it's read and it's done and it's under the sheets and we don't have to read them. But I think sort of rotate your books also. Even if you have very few books at home, you may have
Yeah,
30 books or 20 books, but bring five out and then put those five away for the next 2 months or
it's
3 months. Then that becomes a new book for your child.
that's
Because
true.
then don't read it, reintroduce it in another way.
But I also feel like, like sometimes kids have their favorites, and they like to reread certain books because of how you read it to them. And like you said, every time you point out something new in the book, and so you kind of expose the child to notice everything. So sometimes I also
Absolutely.
feel like I said, we have morning and evening in my house is reading time. But I like sometimes when they come back from school and there's an in between interlude, I often find my son picking out picture books and sitting by himself, and I feel like I don't want to disturb him. Sometimes he'll want me to sit with him and, just hold the book so he can flip it.
Right.
I don't know if it's a
Which is
comfort
fine.
factor or
Yeah,
what it
which is
is,
absolutely
but
fine.
but the thumb rule in my house, and I've told even like everyone, the grandparents, my sister, my best friend, that if my child pulls out a book and gives it to you, whatever you are doing, please drop it and just read, because their books are so small. It takes literally 2 minutes of your time, but it makes a mountain of a difference to your child. And I think like everyone has gotten into this whole reading that now people in like whoever comes to my house prefers coming after dinner time, because they get to read or they get to be a part of the reading, because we all sit on the floor on a floor bed, and either someone is rolling on the bed and reading, or we're sitting and reading. And usually we try and read one book with two kids, but of course as they're growing older, I feel like we split, my husband and me. So like whoever's reading whichever book, and we have one child, so that I can give attention to one child, because I also feel like when you ask questions with the book, point out to this, or what is that, or did I miss this, we missed a page. And I feel like I don't want them to be in competition of who's going to get to flip the page first or answer first. Like you need your time to grasp the information. The purpose would be defeated. So we are trying different ways. But I also think this is a twin parent problem, and like it's a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
But
But you
but
know, that's
thanks.
also, I think just one more thing that comes from what you said right now is that when you have children of different age groups, it's also the same thing. Because for me, my kids were 5 years apart, and I had to still end up reading to the toddler who wants to just move everything around, and the one who is now becoming a serious reader. So I think it's, yes, you do have twins in that way, but it's also actually sometimes worse when you have children with different age
Of
groups,
different age, yeah,
because then you're actually doing two different, genres, two different age groups, two
age
different
groups.
abilities, and so that's also a challenge for parents, I think,
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, and if you're a reader yourself, then I don't know how you can gather the energy to read more words after you finish reading. And some, like now my kids have like moved on to longer books, so I feel like each book takes maybe more than 10 or 15 minutes to finish. So then I haven't read any literature. Like personal consumption is zero since the last year, I would say.
Yeah.
But I hopefully
Yes.
that will change. Thanks,
Yes.
thanks, Rachna. I've taken a lot of your time.
No,
I
don't worry about it.
absolutely
I also lost
loved,
track of time.
yeah, I absolutely loved our conversation, and I hope this
Same here.
inspires many moms and caretakers, caregivers, and anyone
Yeah,
who's taking care of children to introduce them to the one supremely most influential tool of a child's
absolutely.
life, and that would be books, any reading material, any kind of
Any other
literature.
reading material as
Yeah,
well.
any
Yeah,
kind of literature, any language, as long the purpose is to read, to comprehend, and to reproduce that information in whatever relation that the child finds fit. And it's
absolutely.
it's it's amazing how much your child would be able to comprehend, even if you think they can't. So looking forward
Yeah,
to having more such conversations, and
absolutely.
looking
Thank you
forward
so
to
much.
attending a book reading soon, hopefully with the kids again.
Yeah, yes, there will be. We actually have a couple of them coming up, so yeah, it will be fun. But thank you so much for thinking of us and for having me on this. I loved hearing your insights as well, because that's what helps us grow in our profession. And the more we talk and interact and speak to parents like you, who are so involved with the whole learning process for their children, I think that is a huge learning for us, and it helps us understand parents better, and then we can help better. So yeah,
Yeah.
so thank you for that as well.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Rachna. See you.
Okay, see you
Bye
soon.
bye.
Bye. Thank you.